This is the agricultural heartland of Brazil. Mile upon mile of sugarcane and soya and little else. Brazil is one of the world's biggest food producers, and the massive farms here are hugely valuable. They swap hands for hundreds of millions of dollars. It is perhaps an unusual place for this man to make a home. Leandro is not a farmer or a millionaire. He's a wildlife biologist, and for the last 23 years he's chosen to live with his family in this isolated spot. The reason is it is one of the best places there is to observe a rare species. The most powerful cat in the world, the jaguar. Barely ever seen in the wild, the jaguar once roamed throughout the Americas. Now perhaps as few as 15,000 individuals are believed to exist. More than half are in Brazil.
Well, this is one of our most ambitious projects.
Leandro's life's work has been to try to understand where these usually solitary big cats are living, where they hunt and where they breed. The process can seem like a military operation.
Each of this pin here represents a camera trap that we have outside on this region, monitoring the wildlife.
One key issue is that the jaguars need to be able to travel long distances to find mates.
Usually the populations are too small to be what we call genetically viable. So we just have to make sure, in order to be really working as a population, that they get connected. They are able to meet each other and breed.
The jaguar is an endangered species. It is viewed as a trophy by hunters and as a vicious threat to livestock by ranchers.
This, let's say, it's a tiny fraction of what gets killed every year in Brazil. Let's say we have little over than 60 skins here. My evaluation is like, if we are doing something for jaguars, we're definitely not being successful. This represents our failure.
Leandro monitors the jaguars using two methods. He sets out hundreds of trail cameras that detect movement. He also tranquilizes and places tracking devices on the cats themselves.
This is the GPS collar that we use. This is the technology that is available, and it's been very useful to study the movement of these cats. So during 1 year we can collect data on the animal's movement and behavior in this kind of landscape. Before we started this study here with jaguars, there was no knowledge that jaguars would inhabit this kind of environment.
Leandro's research has come to some unexpected, controversial conclusions about the sustainability of this species. He believes that the big cats are adapting successfully to the changing landscape around them.
Wait, I think we got tracks here. Let me check what it is. Jaguar tracks. It's a cub that probably is still traveling with a mother. So as you can see, the tracks are crossing all this agricultural land. That in the end it's a good sign. It shows that they're losing their fear, they're adapting to it, and they are slowly incorporating it to their as a habitat.
Leandro's conclusion that commercial sugarcane plantations can provide a good environment for the jaguars has raised some eyebrows amongst conservationists. He says some even assume he must be in the pay of big agriculture.
People think that it's such an absurd statement that you have to be sold or to the other side of the table. You know, you're working for the farmers. And what our data is telling us that. We as researchers, we interpret our data. We're not making up data. The data is what is out there. You know, it's the reading of what's out there. And what's out there is showing that it is possible to have endangered species like a jaguar living in a landscape like this.
Back at Leandro's home, we go to take a closer look at two jaguars in a pen just a few hundred meters from his house. If an orphan jaguar cub is discovered anywhere in Brazil, it is quite likely to be brought here.
The situation and the story is always the same. Like the mother was shot, and then the cubs were found. Usually people that find it try to raise it, but of course it's illegal to have jaguar as pet. And they try to raise it, but they don't know really how. And when they see that the cubs are not doing well, they end up giving them in and saying that they found it.
A few nights before we'd arrived, there had been a disaster here. A wild jaguar jumped into the pen and killed one of the orphans.
Que foi, Pantera? Que foi com você? Hã? Que foi? Tá traumatizada? Tá? Tá traumatizada? Tá traumatizada? Vem cá. She's acting weird because she lost her friend, the other female that was living with her. So probably was a very dramatic scenario for her, seeing her being killed and attacked and then eaten. So who knows what's going through her mind now. The problem of rehabilitating and releasing cats is that when you hand raise them and they get used to you, when you release them, they don't fear people. And if you release a cat that doesn't fear people, he'll probably approach people one day and he'll get shot because just people will fear them.
After more than 2 decades of research, Leandro and his team have come to the perhaps surprising conclusion that endangered animals and agriculture can coexist as long as the situation is very carefully managed. According to Brazilian law, 20% of developed agricultural land must be set aside to help protect the local wildlife. That, combined with highly automated crop farming, which involves few humans, has, almost by coincidence, led to a relatively benign environment for the big cats. The real problem is cattle farming. Ranchers, with some justification, see the cats as a threat to their livelihoods.
What we're finding out is that the farming can do okay. We can live with jaguars in this kind of landscape, the private land, with intensive farming, and jaguars can live and reproduce here, as we are finding out. But I wouldn't think we would have the same scenario if all this was cattle ranching. When I put myself on the position of a cattle rancher, I agree with him. I have to. It's irrational, to think like that. He's a businessman trying to make money with cattle ranching. But when the source of loss is a species like a jaguar that has this, this icon of power and beauty, the whole society don't agree with that. And then that's the part when the cattle rancher is in a fair position because he's trying to get rid of an animal that everyone wants to save.
Back at the farm, Leandro has been closely monitoring the wild jaguar near his property.
His last position was, 2 hours ago, and he was right here in front of the jaguar enclosure.
But the other tagged animals are roaming further afield.
What her movement is showing, like on this week of data, is that she, of course, is using the natural vegetation, but she's also crossing the sugarcane. For instance, this is sugarcane field, and then she goes to fragments, and then she crosses again the sugarcane fields, and then she goes to the patches of natural vegetation.
Leandro passionately believes that humans and endangered species can coexist. The sustainable future of the wild jaguar is not secure, but this rare big cat's proven ability to adapt to its surroundings does offer some hope that it will survive.